Hi, Ina. Happy Father's Day sa iyong asawa. Hello, Arceline. Happy Sunday also. Hi, Kat. Thank you. Yes, bagong gupit. Hello, Darlene. Hello, Rianel. So, sa mga hindi nakakaalam, ako po si Teacher Kaye. I'm a registered speech-language pathologist. And ginagawa ko tong libreng konsulta. I try to do it every month. Sasagutin ko lang po yung mga tanong na mga gusto nyong malaman, baka sakaling bago kayo magpuntang DevPed or sa Pedia or sa speech therapist ninyo ay may mga gusto kayong matanong or maiklaro, ito po yung pakay ko dito. Or kapag wala kayong ka-idea kung ano ang pwede nyong maging next steps. So, right now, I am live on both my YouTube, which is my original family, and on Facebook also. Hello, Christy. Hello, XLG. Good afternoon. Hello, Jonalyn. Alright, 2:01. Medyo magpadami pa tayo ng konti. But definitely we'll start in a few minutes. Kasi actually, Christy already has her first question. Baka gusto nyo rin na maglagay sa comments ng mga gusto nyong pasalamatan about yung mga father figures or mga tatay sa buhay ninyo. For example, anong favorite nyong ginagawa ng asawa nyo with your kids? Or things like that. Para good vibes tayo dito habang nag-aantay tayo ng konti. Hello, Andre. Hello, Mommy Mai. Blessed Sunday also. Blessed Sunday, everybody. Alright, so meron din akong mga reminders natin. If first time niyo pong mag-attend ng libreng konsulta live stream ko, so hindi po ito assessment, hindi po ito therapy, kasi napaka-konti lang ng impormasyon na maibibigay ninyo sa akin kahit na meron kayong very detailed questions. Kailangan po talaga sa isang assessment ay makita yung bata and at hindi lang parent or caregiver interview. Pero yun nga, sasagutin ko ang inyong mga tanong, kung anong pwedeng maging next steps nyo in terms of speech delay. Hello, Mary Ann. Magandang tanghali. Alright, everybody, it's 2:03. So I think we can start. Hello, Mai Mai. Alright, hello, everybody. I'm going to start now. I'm going to start with our first questions. Papaalala ko lang din na kapag nag-post na po kayo ng comment of your question, huwag pong paulit-ulit. Kasi po, kapag masyadong paulit-ulit, tumatalon po yung nababasa ko, mas wala akong nababasa. So let's be patient and practice turn-taking. Happy Father's Day to your tatay and mga daddy ng inyong mga anak. Alright, let's start with this one. Hello, ang baby ko is 4 years old with moderate autism diagnosed by ABA. ABA used flashcards like numbers, alphabet, objects, and shapes and interview sa akin. Pumunta kami ng OT, ginawan din po siya ng assessment. Ang OT naman po ay inobserbahan ng behavior like nakaupo ba, lumilingon pag tinatawag, nakikipaglaro, may eye contact, may motor skills, at nakaka-follow ng instruction. May interview din po sa akin about baby. Positive po ang feedback nila. Okay, this is Christy. Just in case mas mahaba dito, nag-stop po yung comment nyo sa nababasa ko after positive po ang feedback nila, ... So, I don't know kung may kasunod tong question, but first things that I want to ask, sabi nyo kasi na yung autism ay diagnosed by the ABA. So, as far as I know, sa Pilipinas, ang mga trained lang po nating mag-diagnose ng autism ay ang mga doktor po natin. So, of course, meron ding mga psychologist, hindi po sila doktor, but they specialize in mental disorders, at kaya some of the psychologists have training with diagnosing autism. Pero kung yung ABA po ninyo ay walang qualifications on paper that say nag-train ba siya with the autism screening tool na ginagamit natin or assessment tools na ginagamit natin, because it's so important with autism that we do differentials. So I don't know if you guys alam niyo yung term na differential, but that means that certain conditions or diagnoses, marami silang mga maaaring katulad na ibang mga conditions and diagnoses. And that's why it takes extensive knowledge of all those other conditions for you to say na, okay, they have similar characteristics, pero mas mukhang ito than ito. You cannot just have a screening or assessment tool from the internet and fill out all the checklists and think, okay, because na-check ko lahat dito sa checklist na to, na-diagnose ko na yung anak ko. So, I'm not saying that the person, the ABA that diagnosed your child ay hindi trained. I am saying maybe ask what their background is sa pagda-diagnose ng autism. Like, saan siya nag-aral para makapag-diagnose siya ng autism? Because, uulitin ko lang, kahit po ako at 10 years na akong nagpa-practice, and nabanggit ko to sa iba kong posts na about 80 to 90% of my caseload ay autism. I work so much with the autistic community, but I still cannot diagnose autism. So I just want you to check, guys, because nga sa pagkakaalam ko ay doktor lang sa Pilipinas ang may training, and a specific doctor. They need to be able to tell you that I studied this assessment tool. But dahil hindi naman yung topic mo, it just caught my eye dahil yung binasa ko, yung kinoment mo. I am so happy for you na positive ang feedback nila sa baby ninyo. So that means that usually kapag sinasabing positive yung feedback ay naiintindihan nila kung ano ang pinanggagalingan ng behaviors and skills ng bata. And kapag alam kasi natin yung possible causes of why they behave like this, bakit ganito siya mag-communicate, mas matutulungan natin yung bata dun sa kanilang different needs. And so, yeah, you didn't naman have a question here, Christy, but so much good insight here. Tsaka kitang-kita kong you were paying attention to the different things na sinabi nung OT and ABA sa inyo. But also, I have an episode na iniisip ko kasi ang dami ko in the past month na nagtatanong, teacher, basahin niyo naman tong report ng DepEd sa amin kasi hindi namin maintindihan. So I understand that minsan kapag nagpupunta kayong doktor, it is an overwhelming situation, diba? You go there trying to think, madadiagnose ba yung anak ko with a certain condition or not? So, overall, it's a very different experience and situation. So, even if you are a level-headed type of person, posibleng pagdating nyo doon, medyo hindi kayo makakinig or hindi kayo makafocus, and that's totally understandable. So, ang dami-dami ngang nagtatanong sa akin, can you help explain to us yung report ng doktor namin? Kasi hindi namin maintindihan yung ibang mga nakasulat doon. Ang dami ding nagsabi na parang walang time. Hindi na namin natanong kung anong ibig sabihin ng lahat ng sinulat ng doktor. So for my next episode, I'm going to give a few sample DepEd reports. Of course, tatanggalin ko yung mga related names just to see what kind of terms pop up kapag pupunta kayong doktor and what they mean. Para mas naiintindihan nyo kung bakit pa kayo nagpuntang doktor, kung anong ina-explain nila sa inyo. Alright. Next question. This is from Kathrina. Is it okay to take advantage dun sa mga SP interns things? Okay, the terminology of take advantage, parang when you take advantage, parang dinadaya mo sila dahil hindi mo ba binabayaran? Or do you mean that just because they're there, should we take the opportunity and get their services? So, a lot of factors in this question. Number one, if you think na pagsasamantalahan ba natin, kung yun ang ibig sabihin ng take advantage yung SP interns, hindi po ninyo sila pinagsasamantalahan sa ganong sitwasyon because they are there to learn and they have to practice what they are learning in theory. Kasi ibang-iba yung binabasa mo na ganito mag-therapy, step 1, step 2, step 3. But when you're actually there, handling a child, and all children, all people are so different. There is no one formula to handle them. That's what internship is for them to practice kung anong kailangan nilang gawin, how to manage clients, different behaviors, and different sets of skills. So, yan muna ng sinagot ko. So, I don't think it's taking advantage so much as pinagsasamantalahan. But if you mean, should I seize the opportunity and try to get, and is it okay to let SP interns handle my child? I also say yes. Because interns will always be under the clinical supervision ng kanilang, ang redundant, ng kanilang supervisor. So, no intern will be practicing or honing their skills nang hindi sila inoobserbahan or kahit wala mismo doon yung supervisor at the session, at the end of the day, magre-report sila doon sa supervisor nila. So, yes, I think that it's okay, but also understand, syempre, dahil intern pa lang sila, they are learning. And even me, like I mentioned, I've been practicing for 10 years and I'm still learning. So, always lang keep in mind that ang dami pang natututunan. If feeling mo parang hindi tama yung ginagawa ng intern na to, be open about it. Say, bakit po yun yung choose natin gawin today? And then see if they can explain to you. And if they can't explain it to you, then maybe you can ask or give feedback dun sa clinical supervisors. Karugtong nito, ngayon na recently, kailangan registered ang SLP after the interns graduate, so they will no longer be under the clinical supervision of their mentors. Pwede ba tayong kumuha ng serbisyo ng mga SLP na hindi pa registered? Hindi na po. So, I can't remember kung ano po yung implementation period ng registration namin sa PRC, or the Professional Commission, Regulation Commission. Pero ang alam ko is ngayon, kung hindi ka pa nakakapasa ng boards at hindi ka pa na-register, bawal ka pang mag-practice. So I hope that all those answered your question. And if you have a follow-up, let's see if we can get to that also next. Alright, dito naman tayo sa YouTube ko naman. Kuha tayo ng question dito. So here, ma'am, yung baby ko, 6 years old, bulol po siya. I already have an episode about bulol. So, episode 36 po. 36 is about bulol. Sa ano kasi, sa Tagalog, hindi ganun ka-specific yung ibig sabihin natin sa salitang bulol. Minsan sinasabi natin, bulol yan. Pero ang ibig sabihin natin ay kulang-kulang pala yung mga sinasabi nila. For example, kapag ganito magsalita yung bata, mami, kain kanina, ayaw dog, ruff. So sinasabi niyo, bulol pa po siya magsalita eh. When actually, hindi naman siya bulol, nagkukulang lang yung salita niya. Ang most common naman na ibig sabihin ng bulol ay mali yung pagkakabigkas. So, kanina, yung example ko kanina, kunwari, gagawin ko yung bulol as in hindi nabibigkas yung tamang sounds. Ganito ang tunog. Anina, ain ako ng yon. Bulol yun. May mga nawawalang sounds or may nadi-distort na sounds, and very rarely may nadadagdag na sounds. Yun naman sa English ay ibig sabihin nun yung pronunciation or articulation. Yung pagkagawa natin ng speech sounds. So, dahil hindi ko alam kung alin doon yung pinag-uusapan natin, meron pa palang isa. Minsan may mga ibang naguguluhan sa terminolohiyang bulol at nauutal. Ang utal naman po ay kapag chop-chop yung mga nasasabi, and in English, that is stuttering. So, if ang ibig sabihin mo, Rianel, ay yung second, as in mali yung pagkakabigkas ng ibang mga tunog, meron na akong episode on bulol, and that's episode 36. Bakit kita dinidirect doon? Kasi, unang-una, explain ko for everyone here who might be interested in that episode. Kapag bulol ka, actually, ang nangyayari doon is may mga hindi nabibigkas na sounds. But before we can solve the problem of, basta mali yung tunog, hindi naman pwedeng ma-solve ng ganun, very vague. You have to look at ano yung specific sounds na nawawala, napapalitan, or nadadagdag. And that episode 36, I have specific steps of paano nyo gagawin to. And long story short, although you can go to that for a more detailed explanation, is lahat ng mga sabihin ng anak nyo na hindi nyo maintindihan, isulat nyo as close to kung paano nila sinabi as possible. So, kunyari, kung gusto nila sabihin kain, para ang nasasabi lang ay a-n, isusulat nyo ngayon, A-E-N, A-N. Yun ang pagkasabi niya. So, kain niya, nagiging A-N. Mamaya, kapag marami na kayong nasulat na ganong words na hindi nabibigkas ng tama ng bata, makakakita na tayo ng pattern. Nawawala pala yung k na sound. Yun pala yung hindi niya nasasabi. Kaya pala, kapag sinasabi niya, anina, ain, ao, ang ain, ao ng ui. So, feeling mo, ang dami niyang wrong sounds, pero kapag isulat mo, k lang talaga yung nawawala. And so, kung mahanap natin kung ano yung specific sound na nawawala, we can start showing the child, we can start observing kung anong ginagawa ng bibig ng bata, kung bakit hindi nila nagagawa. And then, kapag nakita na natin, kaya pala, kasi kapag sinasabi niya yung k, ang k, kailangan nasa likod, aatras yung dila natin, k. Nakikita nyo, aakyat siya, ganun. Ngayon pala, ang ginagawa ng bata is, nandito pala sa harap. So that's an example. Once we know na yun yung nagiging problema, mas maipapakita natin dun sa bata kung paano natin siya itatama. So again, I detailed the explanation on episode 36 about bulol. And I hope that helps you. Okay, next, let's take the next one. Alright. Hi, Bernadette. Arceline, thank you for tagging your friend. Alright, here, this is from Catherine. Paano po ma-encourage ang bata to do storytelling? Yung anak ko po kasing 4 years and 8 months old, although marunong na po siyang magbasa ng mga simple storybooks. Kapag tinatanong ko po siya if ano yung binasa niya, nahihirapan po siyang ikwento sa akin. Ang nangyayari po is paikot-ikot ang kwento niya hanggang sa nawawala na po sa topic. This is very common sa mga batang nagsisimula pa lang na matutong magkwento. But first of all, there's another factor dun sa sinabi mo. Another factor is sinabi mong hindi niya makwento yung nabasa niyang storybook. So it actually starts with naintindihan ba niya yung binasa niyang storybook? Because there are some children who can read, as in, kaya lang nilang i-sound out or bigkasin lahat ng mga letters and pagdugtong-dugtungin so that it sounds like words. It sounds like they're reading properly, but they actually don't know what it means. And this skill is called hyperlexia. I have a video on hyperlexia on episode 68 for those who are interested or napapansin na parang ganyan yung anak ko. Parang kung saan siya tumingin, kunyari newspaper, mga poster sa kalye, nababasa niya. Pero, hindi natin sure kung naiintindihan niya yung binabasa niya. It might be hyperlexia. So, the first thing that I want you to check is to go through the story with the child again and give the child guide questions muna. Para alam mo kung pareho kayo ng pagkakaintindi ng story. Because, hindi niya makukwento until klaro din sa kanya kung anong nangyari. So when you are going through books together. Meron nga din pala akong episode on reading books na lately dumadami yung nag-review sa kanya. Hindi ko alam kung sino nag-share sa kanya, but you might wanna look back on it because it's one of my favorite episodes. Medyo mahaba siya kasi sobrang dami kong tips na linagay doon about how you can use books to stimulate language in your children, because a lot of parents think na, oh, books, kailangan babasahin ko lang. Tapos, tapos na. Tapos kung gusto niyang ipaulit, babasahin ko lang ulit. But there's so much more that you can do with books, with kids, para maturuan sila ng words. So for those who are interested in that, it's episode 10. Episode 10 called parang, I can't remember the exact title kasi naka-keywords na lang yung nakalagay dito, pero parang how to read books to toddlers or how to keep your toddler's attention when reading books or something like that. Uunahan ko lang kayo, ito yung panahong simula pa lang dahil episode 10 pa lang siya, full English pa po yun. Sa mga hindi masyadong komportable mag-English, maybe magagawan ko na po yan ng Taglish version soon because it's really super helpful, and sayang if hindi napapakinabangan ng mga kapwa ko na hindi naman masyado pang magaling mag-English. So, yeah, going back to that, Catherine, you need to go through, here's some tips about going back dun sa storybook ninyo. Doon sa storybook ninyo, you have to use the pictures and ask your child questions, WH questions. Yan ang mga what, who, when, questions. Wait lang, may tumatawag sa akin. Okay, so, kapag meron, you know what? I should get a book. Wait lang po. Alright. Here, I have a sample book. This book is called Renee's Ginormous Bag. Alright. Itatanggalin ko po muna yung question para lang makita natin. So, when you're looking through the storybooks, tas nabasa na niya, nakailang ulit na siya na binasa, now what you can do is ask her questions para naiintindihan mo kung naiintindihan niya. You can say, okay, saan nga ba ginawa yung story? Nasa school ba sila? Nasa bahay? Nasa labas ng bahay. Sinong mga kasama sa story? Naalala mo ba? Okay, merong 5 bata dun sa story. Naalala mo ba kung sino yung mga name nila? Okay, merong Rafael, Rene, Martina, Basti, Alessi, for example. And then kapag nasagot nyo na yon, na WH question mo na yung first page or whatever else you want to ask about the text of the first page na magagamit mo yung picture, pwede mo na ngayon sabihin, okay, so kapag sinabi kong, anong nangyari dito? Alam mo, mommy, merong 5 batang naglalaro sa labas ng bahay. Magkapit-bahay sila. Tapos, meron silang binubuhat na napakabigat na bag. So first, before you expect na makakapagkwento yung bata, you need to model what you mean by nagkukwento that is not completely reliant on the text. Because some children might be afraid na kapag sinabi mo, okay, kwento mo nga sa akin, tatandaan ko ba exactly yung story? Kasi baka hindi nila maalala yon, tapos natatakot sila na mali sila. Maraming mga ganun na kids yung ayaw nagkakamali, kaya imbis na magkamali sila, hindi na lang sila magta-try. So isang factor pa yon. Kung ganun yung anak ninyo, you always have to have lots of para bang ways in, para feeling nila okay lang, hindi mali, no pressure, parang ganun. Okay, so next, in telling stories, you always want them to remember what is the characteristic of a good story. And sometimes hindi din alam or hindi naaalala ng mga matatanda kung bakit hindi makapagkwento yung anak ko. Tapos ngayon naman pala, hindi mo rin alam what makes a good kwento. Ina-expect nyo lang na nagdadadaldal na siya. But so, if we want to expect the child to have good kwento, we can start with event retelling, hindi storybooks. What do I mean? Pwede mong ipakwento muna yung mga simple stories such as mga actually nangyari sa buhay niya. Kunyari, ang una mong ipapakwento, practice talking about her last birthday. So siguro mas exciting or mas naaalala niya kung anong nangyari doon. Kasi actually, na-experience niya yon. So this is what we call event retelling. And this is different from story recalling because detached siya sa mga storybooks or stories. Unless, syempre, feel niya yung story. But usually, we start with personal events. So you ask first, kasi diba, how do we tell stories? Diba, the most common in telling fairy tales is you start with once upon a time, in a kingdom long ago, there lived a prince and princess, blah, 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 blah. And these are exactly the markers of a good story. And these are the things that we can remember or cue the child by asking questions. Once upon a time, teka lang, kailan nga ba ito nangyari? Anong pinag-uusapan natin? Yung birthday mo last week. Once upon a time, in a kingdom long ago. Saan ba ito? Saan nangyari? Naaalala mo, oo, pumunta tayo doon sa playground. Doon tayo nakipaglaro. Sa mga there was a prince and princess. Sinong mga kasama sa story na to? So, last week sa birthday ko, pumunta kaming playground at nakipaglaro ako sa mga kapitbahay ko. Yun na, yung kwento. So long as you answer, and the simplest is, kailan nangyari, saan nangyari, anong nangyari, nakipaglaro, or there lived at sino ang mga kasama sa story. These are the most basic. And then later on, in higher level narratives or storytelling, you can remember na all stories have a problem. Lahat yan, merong magiging conflict. And then, how to solve that conflict. And then sometimes, that theme just repeats and repeats. May madadagdag na tao, may bago na namang problema, paano sinolve ng characters yung problema, etc. etc. Hanggang sa ending, yehey, na-solve yung problema, or oh no, hindi pa rin na-solve yung problema, pero the end. And these are what make a good story. So I hope that those tips help you. Again, if you want to go back, because a very good model of telling stories is reading lots of stories together. So if you're interested in the episode 10 about reading books to your toddlers. Alright, let's have another question from YouTube. My son is 3 years old, hindi pa po nakakapagsalita ng tuwid, parang namimilipit po ang dila niya at feeling ko tamad siyang ibuka ang bibig niya. Okay, so base dun sa mga describe mo, parang namimilipit ang dila. So, nai-imagine ko is mukha bang hihirapan yung bata sa paggalaw ng bibig? Kasi parang tamad magbuka ng bibig. So, parang hindi halos gumagalaw yung bibig at parang hindi mo magets kung anong nangyayari dun sa galaw ng dila ng bata. So, mommy, sa aking suspetsya ay baka po merong childhood apraxia of speech or dyspraxia yung bata. Pero bago ko po yan masasabi or bago natin malalaman, unang-una, speech-language pathologist lang po ang makakapag-confirm kung apraxia nga po ang nagiging issue ng bata. But ang gusto ko pong unang gawin ninyo ay panoorin nyo yung episode 45 ko about verbal dyspraxia. Bakit? Dun sa mga nabanggit nyo pong characteristic, yung pananalita ng anak ninyo ay parang pasok po yung mga characteristics ng apraxia because para sa mga hindi nakakaalam, ang apraxia ay isang motor control or sequencing disorder. So it's a speech disorder. Ang very simplistic definition niya ay parang kahit na alam ng brain kung anong kailangan gawin, nagkakaproblema yung brain sa pag-send ng command doon sa ating articulators or parte ng bibig kung anong kailangan nilang gawin. Kaya minsan kapag feeling mo parang tinatamad siyang magbukas ng bibig, hindi. Kapag nakakita tayong parang nakikita natin parang sinusubukan niyang magbuka ng bibig, pero parang hindi nangyayari. It's because alam nga talaga ng brain niya na ito dapat yung gagawin ng bibig ko, pero nababagalan yung signal sa pagdating doon sa bibig para gumalaw siya. So I want you to watch the episode 45 po kasi gusto kong obserbahan nyo yung iba ko pang mga characteristics of verbal dyspraxia. Other characteristics nito ay minsan nakakapagsabi naman ng salita pero hindi niya nauulit. So kunyari nasabi niyo na dati mama, tas parang 1 month na hindi na ulit yung mama, tas walang ibang sounds. So this is very common to children with apraxia. So I hope that you can watch that po, mommy, tas balitaan niyo na lang ho ako kapag napanood niyo na po. Alright, next, let's go back to Facebook. Hi, ask ko my kid is coming for the September. Still di pa siya marunong magsalita. May eye contact naman siya and can follow instructions. Palaging then ka instead of cat. Okay, so marami ka actually mga na-describe na iba-ibang characteristics. So for first, hindi marunong magsalita as in parang ibig sabihin mo ba ay kulang yung mga salitang alam niyang sabihin o intindihin? Kasi can follow instruction, but how often do you give that same instruction? Kasi napaka-broad nito. Baka naman ang nafa-follow na instruction ay come here and ligo na tayo. But if you do this every day, common nga na matututunan ng bata what you mean kasi everyday na uulit. The good thing about that is natututunan niya. So may capacity yung bata na matuto. Pero kung very limited pa yung instructions na naiintindihan niya at sinabi mo na hindi pa masyadong marunong magsalita as in kulang yung expressive vocabulary niya o yung mga nagagamit niyang salita para makapag send ng messages, pwede kasing this is exactly kailangan, these are skills of mga 1 to 2 year old when you're building your vocabulary. So the first thing that I want you to do is kung nanonood ang bata ng any hyper-stimulating videos, and what do I mean by this? So hindi po kasama dyan ang video calling because video calling is person to person pa rin. Ang ibig sabihin ko po ng hyper-stimulating videos ay yung mga nursery rhymes, kahit na educational yung content. Kapag cartoons ang gamit at masyadong mabibilis ang mga scene change, dyan po nagkaka-overstimulation ng bata kasi hindi nila yan napoprocess. Kapag may early exposure ang bata, especially children from 0 to 2 years old, maaaring nakakatigil ito ng development ng kanilang language, and not just language, but behavior and emotional regulation, etc. And then, kapag nung nabanggit mo na palaging ka instead of cat, so parang may mga nawawala ulit na tunog, you can check 3 videos that I have. Nung una, nabanggit ko na is the video on bulol. That's episode 36. To find out ano ba yung mga tunog na nawawala. Pero, pwede nyo ring i-check ang episode 57 and 58 about phonological processes. Ang ibig sabihin naman ng phonological process ay yung natural na kapag nag-aaral pa yung bata kung paano magsalita, may mga dinadaanan sila ng mga patterns na para mas madali nilang mabigas yung words. Some of these most common patterns ay nabanggit mo ay kapag nakakasabi naman ng ka pero wala yung last consonant, cat. So this is called, for example, final consonant deletion. So hanggang kailan na natural pa ito sa kanilang development at kailan kailangan na ng bata ng tulong. So at 4 years old, actually yung final consonant deletion ay dapat nare-resolve na on their own based on the typical patterns of child development. So kapag napapansin nyo na ganito pa magsalita yung anak ninyo, and at the same time kulang pa kasi talaga yung words na meron sila in their vocabulary, it looks like the entire speech and language is really delayed, and hand in hand po kasi talaga yan. So first line of action is, kung nanonood ng videos, itigil muna talaga. I know, mahirap. Guys, parents, hindi ko sinasabi, when I advise this, alam kong hindi madali. Pero gagawin natin ng mahirap kasi mukhang ito ang kailangan ng bata. Because for us to rule out other conditions like autism, ADHD, learning disability, intellectual disability, the first thing that we can remove is the screen time. And that is why I am such an advocate of screen rehabilitation. For at least 2 weeks, subukan nyo na completely cut off nyo yung screen. It will be hard. For some parents say it only took a day. Some parents say it took 2 weeks for them to completely remove screen time. However you do it, you need to do it. So, yan ang number 1. Pangalawa is, if you want na madagdagan ng mga words ng mga bata for things na pang-araw-araw niya, please watch my episode 4 called Commentary or Dubbing. Sa mga bago sa inyo na napa-follow or napa-subscribe because of my last video, yung tinuturo ko kung anong sinasabi habang ginagawa ng bata at pinaglalaruan niya yung fidget toy niya. That's an example of commentary. So you need to practice this all the time. Kasi bago matutunan ng mga bata ang isang salita, dapat pa ulit-ulit nilang naririnig. Baka tayo na nga yung naririndi sa paulit-ulit, pero promise, yan yung kailangan nila. Hindi sila naririndi if it is meaningful. Oh my gosh, I have to go back to this meaningful because this week, sobrang daming parents na nagkwento sa akin na pinadalhan ako ng mga videos na ganito ko po kalaruin yung anak ko, ganyan. So, nagpapadala silang video na wala silang pinaglalaruan, wala silang hawak, nasa kwarto lang sila, nagtitinginan, tapos pinauulit-ulit lang ni mommy na, ano na nga, say A, say B, say C, pero wala silang tinitingnan. Or sabihin mo nga, anak, say egg, for example. Ano pang pinapasabi niya? Okay, so, and at that moment, they weren't looking at any of those things. Sa paningin ko, at least, sa kumukuha ng video, walang tinitingnan yung bata kasi kita ko, paikot-ikot yung eye gaze ng bata eh. So, it couldn't have been that they were looking at the alphabet or letters or an egg or anything. Pero pinapaulit lang ng mommy. So, this is good practice sana in terms of, wow, ang daming sinasabi ni mommy. Pero this can be a lot better kung yung sinasabi nyo ay relevant dun sa nangyayari at the moment. So if you're just asking the child to say egg, tas walang egg, parang inisip ng bata, ito ba ang purpose ng communication? Because that's not it, right? When we communicate, it needs to be about something that's meaningful to us at the moment. So, I know na a lot of parents, kunyari, natsambahan ng anak nyo, biglang may inabot kayong car. Tapos nasabi ng bata, car. Tuwang-tuwa kayo, tapos na yung bata sa car, binaba na niya, airplane na yung hawak niya ngayon. Pero pinapaulit mo sa kanya, anak, sabihin mo nga yung car. Daddy, tingnan mo, sinabi niya car. Anak, say car. Pero airplane na yung hawak ng bata. So, hindi siya relevant. And so, counterintuitive, mas maguguluhan pa yung bata na, wait lang, airplane na, akala ko airplane to, pero pinapasabi niya car. So, alright, another factor is, in the beginning kasi, kapag mga 1-year-old, 8 months to 1-year-old, talagang mapaparepeat mo lang yung mga anak mo ng sounds because ang focus natin at those times are exploring their sounds. So, minsan baka uulit sila ng mga pinapaulit ninyo kahit na walang saysay dun sa ginagawa ninyo kasi natutuwa din sila to explore the sounds and yung turn taking ninyo. May sinabi si mommy, uulitin ko, tas uulitin niya. Tapos, so at that age, mga 8 months to 1-year-old, this is completely functional way of playing or talking to your child. Pero pag lumaki-laki na yung bata, tapos pinapaulit nyo lang, tapos walang meaning, yun. Baka kaya ayaw nang ulitin ng bata kasi parang, but that's not what I'm talking about. Alright, so, I hope that answered your question. Medyo marami ka kasing nabanggit na factors. And I hope that naituro kita to where you need to go or to look for more detailed answers. Okay, let's go back to our YouTube for some questions. Alright, yung baby ko magto 2 years old na next month pero di pa siya nakakapagsalita, pati name niya, hindi niya alam ano kaya ang dapat kong gawin. So, ulitin ko lang. Kapag mga wala at all words by 1-year-old. By 1-year-old kasi usually meron na tayong 1 to 2 words. Actually, 1 to 10 words. Usually yan yung mga araw-araw niyang kasama. Mama, papa, minsan dede, and then their favorite toys. Bola, or kung meron kayong aso, meron silang woof, yan. These are the usual first Filipino words. Kapag 2 years old na, tas wala pang nasasabing words, at sinabi niya, parang hindi pa niya alam yung name. Ibig sabihin, ang feeling kong na-observe nyo ay tinatawag nyo siya at hindi siya lumilingon. Kaya feeling mo hindi niya alam yung name. So, mukhang wala din siyang joint attention. Joint attention is one of the most important prerequisite skills in communication. Kasi kapag nag-uusap tayo, usually we can refer to other things tapos sabay nating titingnan. Or kapag sinabi kong, oh look, tas sabay kayong titingin doon sa place na yun. Ibig sabihin pareho kayo, alam nyo na you are talking about the same thing. So kapag yan, mga hindi pa lumilingon sa kanilang pangalan, this is a difficulty with attention or joint attention. So, I have an episode about improving attention dun sa mga wala talagang response to name. Hanapin ko lang kasi hindi ko memorize. Ayun. Episode 27, for those of you na yung mga anak ninyo ay nahihirapan pang mag-respond to their name. Ang unang-unang sinabi ko dyan ay kapag hindi nagre-respond sa name, nakakarinig ba? That's the first thing that you need to check. Next, like the one na sinabi ko na kanina, kapag hindi pa siya nakakapagsalita, kapag nanonood ng mga hyperstimulating videos, mag-screen rehab po muna. Yan po kailangan nyo lahat gawin muna kapag nakakapansin ng delay sa inyong anak. At paano damihan ng mga naiintindihang salita? Again, it is the episode on commentary or info talk episode 4. I hope that answers your question. Alright, next. Alright, here we have, ang anak ko ay 3 years old. Inuulit niya yung word niya. Ano po kaya magandang gawin? So, ano nga ba? Kapag sarili niyang word ang inuulit niya, it is palilalia, I think. But if in general, nag-uulit yung bata ng sinasabi sa kanya, this is called echolalia, and I have an episode on echolalia. It's episode 33. So, dito in-explain ko in so much detail, pero summary na lang para alam mo kung ano ang echolalia. Ang echolalia ay pag-ulit ng mga salitang sinasabi in the child's environment. So, usually, ang echolalia ay pag-uulit ng sinasabi ng kausap, pero minsan din, meron po tayong delayed echolalia na pwedeng kanina pa sinabi, kaninang umaga pa sinabi, or minsan kahit kahapon pa sinabi, or minsan kahit last month pa sinabi or napanood, biglang uulitin niya. And sometimes, kaya siya nakakagulat is parang sa atin, it seems like, ang random naman, saan ang galing yun? But always remember that echolalia might still be communication. Echolalia might be a way that a child is processing. Baka may hindi siya naiintindihan. Tapos inuulit niya, trying to give himself time to think about yung sinabi sa kanya. So it could be a way to keep processing yung salita na nabanggit. Another is, if you find out kung saan ang gagaling yung mga ginagaya niya, if it's immediate, alam mo agad kapag sinabi mo, what's your name? What's your name? Alam mo na agad na inuulit niya yan either to understand or dahil hindi niya alam yung sagot, pero feeling niya, kailangan kong sumagot so ulitin ko na lang kasi napapressure ako. Parang yung expectant face, alam kong tinatanong niya ako ng something, pero hindi ko alam. So, it could be that. It could be like a form of compliance. Basta may maisagot. Sasagot ako, pero ulitin ko na lang. Minsan ganun din. But one of the most important parts of echolalia, kapag inuulit yung, especially the ones that are delayed. Kunyari, kapag may inulit siya na galing sa, for example, favorite show niya, it could mean na nasusobrahan. Ibig sabihin, wala nang ginawa yung utak niya kung hindi balikan yung napanood niya kanina pa. And that's why we call it overstimulation, is because it goes beyond, dahil sobrang hindi gets nung bata. Ano ba yung napanood ko? Ganda kasi, pero hindi ko talaga maintindihan. So, takbo yan lang takbo sa utak niya. Hindi niya, tinatry niyang i-process. At dahil tinatry niyang i-process, yun lang din yung lumalabas sa bibig niya. Other times of that echolalia happens is, may gusto pala sabihin yung bata, pero nahihirapan siya to use his or her own words to express kung ano yung gusto niyang sabihin. And therefore, gagamit siya ng word na narinig niya in the past, used in this context or used in this situation. I'll give you an example. So, meron akong kid na every time, ano ba? Hindi, nabigay ko na yung example na yan dun sa video Isip ako, okay, ito. So, merong isang kid na nung isang beses na gusto niyang mag-drawing dun sa wall, nahuli siya ng mommy niya. Bago pa siya mag-drawing dun sa wall. Sabi ng mommy, anak, don't do that! Tapos, tumigil siya. Kasi nung tono pa lang ng mommy niya, whether naintindihan niya exactly all the words ng anak, don't do that, napatigil siya because of the emotional delivery ng nanay niya. Pero, the next time, kunyari, parang pinapakain siya ng gulay. Or parang it was a new food, hindi ko maalala. So, may ini-introduce sa kanya na bagong pagkain. Tapos, ayaw niya. Sinabi niya, anak, don't do that. Pero, mommy niya yung kausap niya. Pero, sinasabi niya, yung ginamit na phrase sa kanya ng mommy niya, nung sinabi niyang, wag! Kasi, ayaw niyang kainin yung food na yon. So, if you can see, the child is using someone else's words in the way na naintindihan niya, sa gantong sitwasyon to ginagamit. Trinay niyang gamitin na hindi masyadong appropriate. Pero, if you really investigate kung saan ang galing yung sinasabi ng anak ninyo, magigets niyo what they try to mean. So, ang echolalia talaga, you need to be very observant about what you say to the child, what the child watches or experiences, para mababalikan nyo, kailan ba niya to narinig, kailan niya ba to nagawa, or whatever. And so you will understand how the child is trying to communicate pala with you. So I hope that answers your question. Alright, next. Teacher Kaye, my son, noong 2019, diagnosed with mild autism. Until now, he is more improving. And my echolalia, just a limit na lang. Ano po ang advice to prevent echolalia and panggagaya niya minsan sa pinapanood niya? So, I just talked about this. Isn't that perfect? But, ang number one talaga, especially if ay yung ginagaya niya, ay yung pinapanood niya, tanggalin yung pinapanood niya. So, Especially if nakikita nyong nakaka-over na or parang, okay, especially for older kids, and hindi nyo kasi nasabi kung ilang taon ng bata, but sometimes for older kids with autism, I am very specific na autistic lang yung pinag-uusapan ko in this example. Some of them really like to prefer to learn alone through videos when they're older. And that's something that we can do with them together. That is when co-watching becomes the better option. Pero kung bata pa talaga to, let's say up until 7 years old, tas nakapansin ka na nag-echolalia siya dun sa mga napapanood niya, and feeling mo hindi naman niya nagagamit appropriately in any other context, then it's just memorized overstimulation. You might want to try screen rehab. And for the others, you can go back to my episode on echolalia. That's episode 33. And I hope that yung explanation ko rin ngayon nakatulong sa inyo. Alright, next. Nakikita po ba talaga sa MRI yung brain activity ng isang neurotypical child versus sa batang diagnosed with autism? Okay, I have to be honest na yung pinakabagong research on brain imaging and autism, hindi ko pa na-follow. Pero nung panahong mga ilang years ago, nung nag-aral ako in school so that was 2013, wala pa tayong nakikitang signs na merong changes in the brain. Except for, sometimes there are enlarged areas of neurodivergent people. For example, I think they've seen enlargements in the amygdala, enlargements in the frontal lobe. Pero, so far yung mga studies up to 3 years ago, all the conclusions of those research and imaging studies still say that it's not conclusive. So they are starting to see some signs in changes in anatomy, like in the size of the brain, size of the certain parts of brains. But when they say it's not conclusive, ibig sabihin ay masyado pang maraming factors at play for them to just say, oh, it's because of autism. Kasi what if pala may co-occurring condition yung bata na hindi natin alam. For example, ano kayang pwede? Baka yung bata ay may bipolar disorder, for example. And these are some of the common differentials of, alam nyo ba, na ang autism noong unang panahon, like 100 years ago, ish, something like that, ay akala nila schizophrenia, and that's because so many of the characteristics look so alike. And that's why I go back to the first question na may nagsabi na ABA daw yung nag-diagnose sa anak nila. How knowledgeable is that person to diagnose autism by ruling out all of the other conditions, unless doktor siya or inaral niya talaga lahat yung condition. So that's why I'm not confident kung trained talaga yung nag-diagnose nun, because ang dami talagang differentials of autism. So I'm sorry if my answer doesn't seem final, or because also the research is not final, it's non-conclusive. Alright, I'll go back to my YouTube for a question. Yung son ko, 3 years old, ang assessment sa kanya ay late po siya ng 1.5 years with a few words lang po ang nasasabi. Nakakasunod siya sa instruction. Very good. So that's one of the few things also sa mga napapansin kong wala pa masyadong expressive vocabulary. We always start first with receptive vocabulary. So for those who are new here, ang receptive, nanggagaling yan sa words ng receive, reception. Receptive vocabulary ay yung kapag may narinig kang salita, naiintindihan mo ba yon? And we have our expressive vocabulary, meaning Alam ko kung anong sasabihing salita para pag-usapan ang bagay na to. So, our communication has receptive and expressive language. So, kapag nakakakita tayo ng delays in both, usually we start working on the receptive vocabulary, and very good yung observation ni Mommy. Sabi niya nakakasunod sa instruction. Because those are one of the first things we can do to check if they understand. Bigyan mo ng utos. But we have to remember na ang utos, marami pang factors yan. So, meron kasi tayong commands na single lang. For example, sit. Pag narinig niya yung sit, upo siya. Pero other commands need 2 or more words. Like, get wallet. So, what if, alam pala yung bata yung salitang get, pero di pala niya alam yung wallet. And so, kapag sinabi mong get wallet, tas hindi siya sumunod, sabihin mo, hindi pa yan nauutusan. When actually, hindi lang niya maisip, alin ba yung wallet? So, I want you to be very careful about when you say, nakakasunod ng utos, anong klaseng command na yung nasubukan ninyo? Single word? Single step? Like, get wallet is 1 step, or is it multi-step na? Get wallet tapos lagay mo sa basurahan. Ay, wag naman wallet. Wag po nating itapon ang ating pera. Get paper and crumple, for example. Those are 2-step commands. So for that, I actually have an episode. Guys, panoorin nyo to. Kasi sobrang importante niya, pero parang feeling ko hindi siya one of the things na sinesearch ng mga parents because, ewan ko, baka hindi lang siya top of mind na isa-search. But I do have an episode on following commands. And in episode 41 on following commands, I give you what kind of commands do you start with? Anong pwede nyo i-practice sa bahay? Paano nyo i-incorporate yung following commands sa pang-araw-araw nyong gawain? So, one of my favorite things sa follow commands ay yung mga, yun nga, simpleng, kunyari sabihin mo, kain na tayo, upo ka na sa mesa. Single step, pero maraming words. So, you can start muna with, upo na. Upo. Tapos pwedeng mag-gesture ka when you're starting to teach the word for upo. And tied together with following instructions is knowing what your child understands. And so please go back to episode 17 on object identification. Because paano natin malalaman kung anong naiintindihan ng bata kung hindi pa siya nagsasalita? We need to check always their body language. Sometimes it's as simple as eye gaze. Kung sinabi mo bang, get mo ng ball, tapos nakita mong tumingin yung bata dun sa ball nga, o alin dun yung naintindihan niya? Yung ball. O di alam natin. Or it's simple as kapag nakaka-follow nga ng commands, then you know naintindihan ng bata. So, these go hand in hand. Episodes 17 for object identification. There are also tips on how to use, kung may mga, alam mo, mga Filipino, hindi lang naman siguro Filipino, ang mga magulang sobrang hilig sa flashcards. Also because they're so easy to find, diba? And also easy to make kung gusto nyo ng homemade stuff. But so, episode 17 also tells you how else you can use your flashcards meaningfully. And then, yun na nga, my episode 44, I think, 41 on following commands. So I hope that answers your question, but you're on the right track. Work first on the receptive language, and then, kung gusto namang gumaya ng bata, kunyari nagbigay ka na ng utos, and that's receptive language. After nun, pwede mong tanungin, what? Kunyari, ang utos mo ay, anak, get ball. Kinuha na niya yung ball. Anong kinuha mo? Ball. Ano? And then, ma-encourage yung bata to use one of the words in the instruction. So that's one way of flipping your goal of receptive language and also at the same time targeting the expressive language. So I hope that helps you. Okay. I like this one. Hello, first time joining you live. Pero parang nakausap ko na to. So hi, it's so nice to have you here today. All right. Do we need to start with PECS or can we go straight to AAC? Thank you. So, PECS is a kind of AAC. So, for those who are not familiar with these terms, AAC stands for alternative and or augmentative. Augment, ibig sabihin karagdagan or complementary communication. So these are all the different devices or systems na maisip natin of how we can encourage an individual to express themselves. Let's say, kasi hirap na, meron nga talagang issue with motor planning. So, hirap talagang magsalita, pero maraming alam yung tao. So, they just need some sort of device to be able to express themselves. Some of them are pointing at pictures or giving pictures, etc. So, PECS stands for ano ba to? Picture Exchange Communication System nga ba, Mommy, yung S? PECS is a kind of AAC. Ang PECS is yung meron tayong nagka-create tayo ng boards for the individual who needs the AAC. Picture boards where ituturuan natin yung tao na kung ano yung gusto niya, ibibigay or ipapakita or ituturo dun sa kausap nila para malaman kung anong pangangailangan or gusto nilang sabihin. Now, it just so happens that PECS is one of the low-cost AAC devices. And dahil ang bansa natin ay wala naman masyadong support from the government or private organizations with regard to other AAC devices, ang usual, traditionally, ang recommend ng mga speech therapist ay PECS. Kasi all it takes is magpiprint ka ng mga pictures. Usually pa, yung mga picture na mismong gamit ng mga bata. Tapos ipapalaminate nyo yun. Tapos dapat pare-pareho silang size. Pagpipilian pa ng AAC specialist kung malaki yung picture, maliit, ano bang kayang intindihin ng individual. So this became one of the go-to AAC ng Pilipino. Pero sa totoo lang, hindi naman kailangang PECS lagi ang simula. If you think that yung anak ninyo or mahal ninyo sa buhay ay mas makakagamit ng tablet, for example, because sa tablet, di na kayo kailangan mag-print or laminate. Tapos mas maraming choices kasi you don't have to bring around a board. Yung mga dati na mga PECS kids ko, may mga ganito sila kakapal na binder. Tapos mag-flip sila doon bago nila maturo kung ano yung gusto nila. Ngayon, imagine with tablets or cell phones that have AAC devices and we have a locally made AAC app called Pick a Talk. So, sa inyong nagpa-follow sa akin, alam ko ilang beses na kami, nag-guest na ako sa channel niya, nag-guest na siya sa channel ko. Because I'm just so proud na meron tayong Filipino-made and later on, maybe we can develop a more Filipinized set of vocabulary doon. Yun, so because nasa app na siya, it's so easy to put how many pictures, to scroll and find the ones that you want to say doon. So it does not need to be PECS. It can be any other AAC that you think your loved one can make use of. The important thing here is lumapit po kayo sa AAC specialist. Kasi tulad ng nabanggit ko, AAC is not just like, oh, hindi siya makapagsalita, so bigyan natin ng picture exchange. Hindi ganon. You have to take into consideration ano ang financial na kakayahan ng pamilya. Kasi kung hindi nila kayang magka-tablet or gadget, X na agad yung tablet or gadget, di ba? At the same time, yung nabanggit ko kanina, we need to be specific. Does the child recognize written word? Does the person recognize pictures lang? Mas nare-recognize ba niya ang colored real pictures? Or okay na yung parang mga drawing or cartoon representations of, let's say, gusto niya ng milk, for example. Sobrang daming aspects niyan. I'm not an AAC specialist. but I do have an episode explaining more about AAC with an AAC specialist. So that's Teacher Miel, and it's episode 66 called AAC. I hope that answered your question. Let's go back to our YouTube. Okay, hello Teacher Kaye, yung daughter ko is 4. Di pa po nakakapagsalita, may ASD din po siya. Okay, so maybe you can tell me po kung ano yung skills niya ngayon kapag nagko-communicate siya para mas mabigyan kita ng advice. Let's get another one here. Ano po ba talaga ang regression? Yung mag 3 years old ko na, yung mag 3 years old ko, di na kinakanta yung mga dati niyang favorite. Di na din nasagot ng Q&A namin about numbers, colors, animals 1 month after mag pre-nursery. Okay, this is quite complex for me because ang daming aspect. So, unang-una, dati, kumakanta siya ng mga favorite things. Hindi ko alam kung ano yon. And kapag nako-Q&A nyo about numbers, colors, animals, nakakasagot siya. And I don't know if the numbers and colors ay dahil tinuturo nyo yun, that's how you play together, or nakukuha ba niya yan sa mga napapanood niya? Because if nakukuha niya yan sa mga napapanood niya, baka dati, na-overstimulate lang siya. Tas ngayon na nagpe-pre-nursery na siya, tas mas nakakakita na siya ng ibang kids, di na siya overstimulated doon. Pero ang nagiging problem dito is usually, kapag hindi na sila overstimulated, dumadami pa nga yung sinasabi nila, pero ang sinabi mo ay feeling mong nag-regress kasi hindi na siya sumasagot. Regression, in its simplest definition, is losing skills that you previously had. Yun ang ibig sabihin. So, katulad nga ng nabanggit dito, if dati may mga nasasabi ng mga salita yung bata, tapos tumigil sa pagsasalita, this is one form of regression. There are also behavioral regressions. For example, noong 1-year-old siya, mahilig siyang mag-thumb suck. Tapos, nung dumalas na siyang kumain ng solid food, nawala yung thumb sucking. Pero nitong mga 3 years old, nag-thumb sucking na ulit. This is also a behavioral regression. Kasi parang bumalik siya doon sa period of nung buhay niya na nag-thumb suck siya. So it's just nga because it means it's kind of either losing the skills or going back to less sophisticated skills. So, meron akong episode on regression. That's episode 60. Maraming iba-ibang causes of regression. Sometimes, a very high fever that causes a febrile seizure. Ang seizure po ay yung kapag nakita nating nangisay yung bata, medyo parang nanigas, tas nangisay. Yan po ang seizure. At ang ibig sabihin niyan ay sa loob ay yung mga neurons sa brain, ang mga neurons po natin ay kung paano nagpapadala ng messages yung brain natin to different parts of the brain and to different parts of our body. So, minsan kapag na-overload or something happened with the body chemistry, nagme-misfire yung neurons. Habang nagsisend ng message, para bang I liken it to like may pumutok na transformer, parang ganon. And it causes an electrical reaction, kaya nakikita nating nangingisay yung bata. So, seizures can be caused by high fevers na not uncommon sa mga baby. Kasi kapag mataas yung fever nila, parang survival mode yung katawan. So it does all sorts of things to try to protect the brain and the body. So anyway, sometimes this is caused by seizures, sometimes it is commonly associated with autism. And lumalabas lang talaga siya between we have seen studies na as young as 6 months nakakapansin ng regression, pero commonly, on average, from 18 months to 3.5 years old, yung pinakamaraming napapansin na regression. Yung parang dati, nagbababbling naman, pero pagdating ng 2 years old, wala nang sounds na ginagawa. So I hope that you can watch the episode on regression, episode 60, para makita kung parang ganito nga at kung ano yung pwede yung next steps. But para na rin sa lahat ng mga nanonood ngayon din, the next step for a regression is really to go to a developmental pedia at banggitin ninyo. Pero unang-una, banggitin nyo muna sa pedia ninyo. Tsaka ikwento nyo kung nagkasakit ba ng mataas yung bata, nagka-pneumonia or something. These are factors. Tapos kapag feeling ng pedia nyo na yun, we might need to refer to a developmental pedia kasi mukhang nakaka-affect na ito dun sa paglaki ng bata. I hope that helps you. Okay, saan galing tong anong to? Alright, this one says, he keeps on talking pero hindi malinaw. Alright, that's we would rather na marami siyang gustong sabihin. That means at least the child is very expressive or at least is trying to be expressive pero hindi malinaw. So, ito na naman tayo on our topic on pagkabulol. But I just want to tell you guys that at 3 years old, meron pa talagang 25% chance na may mga words na bulol pa talagang masasabi ng mga bata kasi aside from knowing what to do with their mouth to produce a sound, humahaba na rin ang mga words na ina-attempt nila. And so, every position that we make for every single sound, for example, cookie, ha? So, ang unang gagawin ng tongue mo ay nasa likod, and then, gaganto na yung bibig mo, yung dila ko, kapag medyo magde-depress tong nasa gitna, tapos babalik na naman doon, aakyat naman yung dila ko, tsaka magfa-flat. So, yung transition between all those positions are what we call fluency in speech. Pinapractice pa yan. Tututunan pa ng mga bata, i-co-articulate from one sound to another. So, there really will still be about 25% of errors. So, for those of you na nag-wonder, paano ba makukuha yung 25%? Medyo subukan yung isulat kung ilang percent of the time nagkakamali or hindi nyo maintindihan yung sinasabi ng anak nyo. And if it's more than 25%, then start looking into yung sinabi ko, mga episodes on bulol, 36, or episodes on phonological process, episodes 57 and 58. Or if you might need na talaga to consult with a speech-language pathologist. But also, hindi kasi ako sure dun sa pagka-describe niya na he keeps talking pero di malinaw. Could it also be jargon? Jargon kasi is when ginagaya na ng mga bata yung tunog ng mga matatanda pag nag-uusap. Pero dahil wala pa silang enough vocabulary to supply what they actually want to say, nag-iimbento sila ng tunog. So kunyari, ang gusto nilang sabihin ay naglalaro ng video games si daddy, for example, pero hindi nila alam pa yung ibang words na gusto nilang sabihin. So, naglalaro ni daddy. Tapos parang nag-imbento na lang sila ng tunog. Pero yung itsura nila sa'yo, parang feel nilang nakikipag-usap sila sa'yo. It might be jargon. I also have an episode on jargon, and that's episode 34 sa mga gusto pong balikan ang jargon. Para pong yung ina-explain ko kanina about echolalia, it's also very important kapag nag-jargon nung anak nyo to observe. Ano kayang gustong sabihin ng bata? But more importantly, kapag alam mo na kung ang gusto palang sabihin nito ay naglalaro na naman si daddy ng video games, ganyan. Then uulitin mo ngayon yung dapat sana niyang words na gamitin. Naglalaro ba si daddy ng video games? Okay. Para next time na gusto niyang sabihin yon, narinig na niya, yun pala yung words na pwede kong gamitin. So, always important to think about the context, what they are trying to say, and immediately supply the target words or phrases. That's how you can help kapag hindi malinaw yung sinasabi ng bata. Alright. We'll go back to this one. Yung anak ko hindi pa na ipapasok sa OT kasi matagal pa ang slot. Ano po kayang mga activities ang pwede gawin? For OT, dahil speech pathologist po ako, hindi po ako makapag-suggest na mga gagawin in terms of OT. Pero for speech, sobrang dami ko po. I have more than 80 episodes on this channel. And meron din po akong playlist. So, kung pumunta ka po sa channel ko, ang itsura po nito sa mobile, makakakita ka ng iba-ibang tabs. May nakalagay videos, shorts, live, and then sa medyo dulo-dulo, merong playlist. I-click nyo po yung playlist. I-click nyo po yung playlist ko on activities for some of the things that you can try to do at home. Pinili ko po talaga yung mga activities na baka pwede nyo i-set up dyan sa bahay ng madali. So, I hope that you can look at that for some activities that you can try. Alright, next. Okay, wait lang. Meron pa, okay. May part 2 pala yung kanina. Kailangan i-workout ang speech, attention at focus ni baby. Nagtanong po ako kung nakikitaan ba nila ng autism. Hindi daw nila nakitaan ng sign. Pero kung gusto daw namin makasigurado ay DepEd daw po hindi nila in-honor ang diagnosis ng ABA. Very good naman pala. Kanina pa ako nagmuni-muni dito kasi hindi klaro sa akin. Ang problema ko ay next year pa ang vacant schedules ng DepEd. Ano pa ang mapapayo niyo sa akin, Teacher Kaye? Kanino pong assessment ang dapat kong sundin? For me talaga, DepEd lang makakapagsabi kung autism ang pinag-uusapan natin. But, before you can, to help you start helping the child, sabi kasi ng OT, hindi nakikitaan ng signs ng autism. Pero usually, the only thing different about teaching an autistic child is that you have to first manage their sensory needs. And to explain sensory needs, meron po akong video dyan. And it is episode 59. So, ang autistics po kasi, madaming different ways of receiving information from the world. And that's why, with their senses. And that's what I mean about sensory needs. So, ang dami ding nagtanong sa akin lately na, teacher, sinasabi kasi nung OT namin or sinabi ng DepEd namin na focus on their sensory needs. Pero dahil taranta na ako, hindi ko na inintindi kung ano yung sensory needs. But ito ang importanteng maintindihan first and foremost ng lahat ng mga magiging kasama sa support system ng isang autistic ay intindihin ninyo na ang takbo ng kanilang katawan at ang pag-respond ng kanilang katawan at ng utak ay ibang-iba sa mga neurotypical because meron tayong such a thing as sensory seeking or sensory avoidant. Kailangan nating maintindihan ano yung kailangan ng bata. Nagkukulang ba sila sa movement and therefore parang lagi silang ikot ng ikot, rock ng rock, flap ng flap. So kapag itong mga nakikita nating behavior sa bata, it might mean that they are seeking more stimulation kaya hinahanap nila and they are trying to do it for themselves. These are what we call our repetitive behaviors. Kung may napapansin kayong repetitive behaviors ng mga bata, another one pa pala, kasi ang sabi ko pa lang, yung sensory seeking, meron din tayong mga sensory avoidance. So, the children that we see na hindi kaya ng loud sounds, ayaw ng maraming tao, kapag maraming tao, hindi talaga nila kaya, parang nasasaktan sila. So, with autistics, this is the first thing that we need to address. Kasi kapag hindi natin ito ay address, they feel unsafe and uncomfortable. ang daming mga autistic adults ngayon in the community that talks about feeling daw nila para silang sinusunog. Ganun yung ibang mga sensation ng ibang tao kapag hinahawakan sila. Kahit sa atin, tinapik ko lang naman siya. Sa kanila, dahil iba nga yung pagtanggap ng katawan nila sa stimulus na ito, they receive it differently. And so, they enter a state of, like I said kanina, di ba, parang survival. So, kung ikaw ba in a state of survival, I feel unsafe. You can't learn in that situation. No one learns in an uncomfortable situation. And that is one of the hallmarks of addressing the needs of autistics or other neurodivergents. You always start with the sensory needs first. It starts and ends and is all encompassing sensory needs. So, dahil wala ka pa pong assessment, the first thing I want you to observe for is, are there repetitive behaviors in your child? So, for a more detailed explanation, you can go nga to my episode 59. And then I also talk about what you can do kapag nakita mong, iba nga yung sensory needs ng bata. Anong ngayon kailangan mong gawin? For this, I suggest having a sensory schedule. Some other autistic families call it their children's sensory diet. As in, kasama na sa everyday routines nila na kung ano yung pangangailangan nila, first thing in the morning, if kailangan niya ulit ng hapon or every 10 minutes, nakaprogram na yan. Because that's how the child feels safe, and when they feel safe, they can learn, period. Not just, I was about to say kasi they can learn new words, but that's, even that's beside the point, diba? When you have an issue that pressing. But yes, when you deal with the sensory needs, you are able to learn better. I hope that helps you. Next. Hi, napacheck up ko po ang anak ko sa NeuroDevPed. Diagnosed po siya ng autism with psychosocial disability. Ano po kaya ang dapat kong gawin? Hi, so there is an entire playlist of autism doon sa aking YouTube. Dito, you're on YouTube. But sige, sa lahat ng mga nandito nanonood maybe for the first time and have no idea about autism, you're just here kasi gusto nyong turuan kung paano makapagsalita yung anak ninyo. But autism is a developmental disability. It's a developmental difference where, like I said, a lot of them have different sensory needs. And kapag sinabi natin, if you hear the word neurodivergent, it means that they think and process the world differently. They feel things possibly differently from how neurotypical. Typical, ibig sabihin karaniwan. Ang mga autistics and people with ADHD, etc., they are neurodivergent because nagda-diverge sila from what we usually see in patterns of development. So ano ang unang kailangan gawin kapag diagnosed yung anak nyo with autism? Is, again, pay attention to their sensory needs. That is number 1. Number 2 is love them and support them with everything because they will not learn the same way that ang ibang tao ay matututo. If they need more repetition, give them more repetition. If you feel like 100 times mo nang tinuro kung paano magwawash ng hands, ituro mo ulit. I just want everyone to remember that children will do good when they can do good. Unless of course there are very special cases talaga where it's a personality difference, but most children like to show us their best. That's why I don't believe it when people say tinatamad yung anak kong magsalita, tamad lang kasi yun eh. What if we start thinking na hindi sila tamad pero hirap na hirap sila at kailangan natin silang tulungan? So, because when we shift our words and how we see things, mas magiging compassionate tayo dun sa plight ng mga bata because mas magandang isipin yun kesa pasaway sila. I don't think anyone wants to be pasaway. It must mean there is something going on na nahihirapan silang gawin yung ine-expect natin sa kanila. I hope that helps you. But Leslie, ang dami kong videos of how you can further understand autism and autism characteristics in my autism playlist. And there's also something there kung meron kang kasamang social disability, because I also talked about yung mga madalas na kasama ng autism ay ang social communication disorder. So that is episode 56. So I hope that helps you. If you have any other questions pa, pwede mo naman po akong balikan. Good day, Roberto. Alright, let's see. Hi, my baby is 3 years old. May iba pa siyang word na nasasabi kagaya ng mama, yes, no, pero may iba po siyang word na tinuturo ko pero iba sinasabi niya at di po siya laging umiimik kung di ko papaimikin. It also sounds to me, I'm not sure if you were here kanina na, Louise, but if ever, because I suspect na baka may verbal dyspraxia yung bata or childhood apraxia of speech. And kanina na-explain ko na siya. And that's episode 45. So you can watch that and see if ganito nga ba din yung dinedescribe mo. Kasi yung mga nabanggit mo is, minsan nasasabi niya, pero hindi na niya ulit sasabihin or hindi siya umiimik hanggang papaimikin. It sounds consistent with that, na baka hindi sa ayaw niyang umimik, pero para bang natsambahan niya yung nasabi niya, tas nung sinusubukan niyang ulitin, nahihirapan na yung brain to send the right signals. But the great thing about apraxia is because it's about sending signals, it can be practiced. Kasi everything, and this is the foundation of therapy, is that if you do things over and over, your brain, your body will eventually learn how to do it. Dumadali with practice. And that's why it's so important for apraxics to have very specific speech therapy that focuses on fun, repetitive practice. Because when they keep trying to get, let's say, how do I make up with my mouth to say papa, pa. So yun pa lang, their brains are trying to send signals. And the more that they try to do it, para bang okay, ito nga pala yung daan. Di ba ganun din tayo kapag may bago tayong pupuntahan? Sa first time nating pupuntahan, parang minsan wala pa tayo. Parang, ay, kakanan ba dito? Ay, hindi, atras muna tayo ulit. Dito pala sa kanan. Kapag ilang beses nyo nang napuntahan, nakakahanap kayo ng mga shortcut, di ba? Mas madali kapag dumaan ako sa eskinita na to, nababawasan ako ng 5 minutes pagdating dun. Ganon din yung apraxia. The more that you try to go to that position with your mouth, the brain commands the same mouth positions, dumadali at dumadali. Mas nagagawan nila ng compensatory techniques. So, I'm not sure, just based on this info, I don't have any other suspicions dun sa bata. So, maybe watch nyo po muna yung video and then pwede nyo akong balikan when you've seen it. Okay. Dropping by to say 0 screen time. Oh my gosh. Okay. Thank you, Patty. Dropping by to say, the 0 screen time is super effective. Kaya naman. Mahirap lang sa simula. Now, my kids are used to 0 screen time pag school days, weekends na lang. Pero syempre, summer break ngayon. Hihi, thank you for your informative videos. Yay! Thank you so much! Oh, guys, narinig nyo yan ha. Mommy yan. Kaya dun sa mga nangaaway sa akin, kapag ina-advise ko sila na, kaya nyo po yan, mommy, or kaya nyo po yan, daddy. 0 screen time. Mahirap po, pero kaya po. Tapos may mga nangaaway sa akin na sinasabi, hindi ka kasi mommy. Hindi mo alam kung paano na araw-araw, ang dami mong kailangan gawin, tapos wala nga. And I'm not saying hindi valid yung sinasabi nyo. I get it. Mahirap talaga. But as a professional, na hinihingan ninyo ng advice, huwag nyo akong awayin na hindi ako mommy. Because I'm also taking it from experience na ang daming families na nakapagsabi sa akin na kinaya namin teacher. Tapos grabe yung grabe yung progress ng mga anak nila. Hindi ko sa inyo guys i-advise yung wala lang dahil lang nabasa ko somewhere. Hindi guys, ang tawag dyan ay clinical experience. Napagdaanan ko na, napakadaming pamilya ko na pong nakausap at nakatrabaho at sila na rin mismo ang nagsasabing grabe yung effect ng zero screen time. Like, 200% bumilis daw yung progress ng mga anak nila. So thank you, Patty, for reminding everyone in our community. Thank you so much. Hi, please enlighten me about language disorder. Thank you. Okay, so I do have a video called Delay or Disorder. That's episode 37. So, ang dami kasing nagtatanong, teacher, yung nakasulat po dun sa DevPed report namin ay language disorder, pero ang alam niyo lang daw na term ay language delay. Ano daw po ang difference? So, very, very shortcut because para marami tayong ibang masagot, okay? At meron na kasi akong video. So, for delay or disorder, ang delay po is kapag nakita nyo na yung skills ng anak nyo ay kahit papano nagde-develop in the same patterns as the typical patterns of developing children all around the world. For example, 3 years old na siya, pero ngayon pa lang siya nakapag first word, pero ngayon lang din siya nakatayo at nakalakad ng walang tulong from anyone else. At ngayon lang din siyang nakakasunod kapag nagsising kami ng action songs, tapos pag sinabi, clap your hands, clap, clap. So nakakasunod na siya ng routine commands or instructions. So nakikita natin, ang pagtayo, 1 year old. First word, 1 year old. Following single step commands, 1 year old. So kahit 3 years old na siya, pero lahat ito ay typical of a 1-year-old. Lahat ng skills na expected natin of a 1-year-old ay sabay-sabay. Then the child looks like he has a language delay. Natututunan naman niya yung mga necessary skills na huhuli nga lang. It becomes a disorder kapag, from the word disorder, sa usual or karaniwan na pagkasunod-sunod order, ay nalilihis tayo doon sa usual na pagkakasunod-sunod. So, an example of a language disorder is kapag wala pang nasasabing mama o papa o dede o kahit na anong pang araw-araw na communication of needs or wants, walang word, zero. Pero, madalas naniname lahat ng dinosaurs. Tyrannosaurus Rex, Stegosaurus, Brontosaurus. Okay, nakikita natin na masyadong malayo yung skills na nalalaktawan ng bata. Bakit kaya niyang sabihin yung Tyrannosaurus Rex pero hindi mama at papa? There must be something that is causing the child to have skills that are so far apart. And that's what the simple definition of a language disorder. So if you want more examples or more detailed explanation, again, I ask you to watch Delay or Disorder. That's episode 37. I hope that helps you. Alright. And just to clarify, language disorder is the same as communication disorder. Language and communication in the topic of child development are interchangeable. Language, hindi ibig sabihin English or Tagalog. Language means paano nagko-communicate yung bata. So, communication disorder, language disorder, all the same. Iba naman ng konti yung speech disorder kasi maaaring the child has all the vocabulary necessary of a 3-year-old. So, nakakapagkwento na siya ng maikli na, Mama, kanina kain ako cookie. So, nasasabi niya yon pero bulol siya. Or, hindi, wag pala 3 years old kasi meron ngang percentage of error. Let's say 4 years old siya. Tapos may bulol-bulol pa siya or mga hindi niya talaga masabi yung letter, for example, D. Every time gusto niyang sabihin yung D, nagiging G, nagiging G. That could be, if the child is already 4 years old, that could be a disorder. Bakit hindi pa nagre-resolve yung speech? Speech ay yung pagbibigkas lang ng bata at 4 years old. So, just some clarifications. Alright, next. My son is 3 years old, non-verbal. Hindi masyado na-expose sa playmates kasi I'm work from home. Any suggestions na pwede toys or activities na pwede kahit matagal siya sa loob ng house at toys at makaka-help sa pagsasalita niya? Alright, so this is super common, especially sa pandemic babies. Mga hindi talaga nakalabas, hindi pa masyadong naka-experience ng other people, and therefore ngayon na medyo nakakalabas na tayo, parang weirdo sila sa ibang bata. Kasi sanay sila na puro matatanda lang ang kasama nila sa bahay. Kung wala kayong extended family, usually yung daddy at yung mommy, minsan mga lolo, lola at tito lang ang mga nasa bahay. So sa kanila, ang ibang tao ay mas malalaki lahat sa kanila. Pag nakakakita sila ng mga kaedad nila, parang, anong creature ito? So this is very common in pandemic babies. So you're not alone there. So every time when parents ask me about how or what kind of toys to introduce first, I have an episode about best toys. That's episode 19, best toys, and I think this is for toddlers lang. So 3 years old, baka pwede pa naman yung ibang mga toys sa episode na to. But in general, the first thing that I want you to check when you want to leave the child. And guys, when you leave a child, hindi pwedeng all day ha. When I talk about leaving a child in this context, it is only for like a few minutes, and dapat medyo nasa peripheral vision nyo pa rin sila. Or medyo dapat may sound access ka pa rin. Like, naririnig mo siyang naglalaro. Kasi the moment na hindi mo na marinig, kailangan mo na i-check yung bata. But so when we do want to leave the child for a few minutes, I want you to make sure that you set up a safe playroom. Kasi, ang number one concern natin forever with children or with any individual is safety. So when you do want to leave them, make sure na naka-barricade off siya, na hindi siya makakatakbo sa labas, especially yung mga autistics natin that may be eloping. Elope is kapag yung nagre-run away sila bigla-biglaan. And oh my gosh, minsan ang bibilis talaga ng mga autistics na nag-elope. Grabe, kaba factor. But yes, so I need you to make sure that the area is secure. So, secure as in hindi makakalabas nung area na yon. So, kapag mga bata pa yan, hindi pa naman climb over the fence, okay na yung parang meron kang maliit na baby fence, ganyan. Next, I need you to make sure na wala siyang mahahawakang kuryente. So, a lot of the time, nag-work na naman na yung mga socket, safety socket, safety plugs, where naka-cover yung mga socket. So, it's very important na wala silang access sa kuryente. Pangatlo, make sure wala silang maaakyat. Kasi kapag makaakyat sila, pwede rin silang mahulog. So, these are the things that I always check to make sure the area is safe. Next, making sure that the toys are safe. Wala bang parts na pwede nilang mabiyak at isubo at baka mabilaukan. So these are always the first things that you want to check about the toys that you give them. Are they age appropriate in terms of appropriate ba na walang small parts? Kaya di ba nakikita nyo sa mga toys, it will say may contain small parts. And that's to warn you na, ibig sabihin kasi yung small part, and children will explore their toys. Children will try to pull and push and throw and bang. At kapag nabiyak na yung small part na yan, pwede nilang lunukin. And we don't want that to happen. So always check if your toys will have small parts. And then in terms of appropriateness of toys and activities, yung activities po, again, let me remind you, I have an activities playlist on my YouTube. So I hope you can go there, and there are about 4 types of activities. or maybe 6 now. I don't know, that you can try. And ang maganda dito sa mga to is I give you the concept of the activity so that if you can't do the exact same activity, you can like adjust it doon sa anong meron kayo dyan sa bahay ninyo. Alright, so and then for toys, for 3-year-olds, usually na yan pretend play. So anything that can be openly played, toy sets, kitchen sets, construction sets, mga may hammer, nail, screw, lahat ng may makakalikot. Pwede nyong i-build yung, alam niyo yung mga tubes na napapagkabit-kabit, tapos kapag nakabit nyo na into a tower, pwede kayong magpa-roll ng ball, tapos ganun. Oh my gosh, love na love nila yun. Blocks, where they can start building, because 3 years old especially, that's when they start getting very creative about what they build, and makikita mo rin kung anong nasa utak nila with what they build. Are they building a house? Are they saying, ito, kotse to ni daddy, ito yung sasakyan ni daddy pag pupunta siyang work every day, and then it's like a block with some circles, ganyan. So I hope that this helps you, even if hindi masyadong specific yung examples ko. Okay. Alright, paano hinahandle ang clients if ayaw po nilang gawin yung certain activity? Kapag po medyo strong din ang personality ng bata, ano po bang tamang approach? Strong po ba or gentle approach? For me, always gentle until I know na medyo nananadya na yung bata, and that's very rare na nananadya yung bata. Like, wala pang 2% sa clients ko, I would say, ang nananadyang ayaw lang sumunod. Like, usually, kapag nag-whine na sila, ayaw ko, it's usually because mahirap sa kanila yung activity, or hindi nila maintindihan kung anong expected sa kanila. So, when they start whining, when they start complaining, or ayaw nilang gawin yung activity, either lower the expectation, or what the expected output of the child is, or provide more demonstrations. Baka kahit na verbally nasabi nyo na, tapos na-demonstrate nyo one time, baka kailangan nyo pa niyang makita kung ano pang kailangan niyang gawin para mamaya dyan makikita mo, sunod-sunod na. Tsaka always be the first one who is the most interested in your activity, because if you seem bored in your activity, edi syempre bored din siya. Kailangan hype man kayo sa sarili niyong activity. So ako, kapag naglabas akong toy, kahit na let's say every week yun na request ng toy, lagi akong, oh my gosh, here's our cooking set again. Dapat sobrang excited mo. And then kapag ayaw pa rin talaga, then shift gears. Follow the child's lead. Baka kasi may gusto talaga siyang ibang gawin. And that's okay, because we also want to respect that these children are people, because they are, and that they have other things that they want to do. So a lot of the time, kung may gusto talaga silang gawin, tas sinabi mo, okay, let's take a break, tatakbo yan agad kung anong gusto nilang gawin. Didiretso ba siya dun sa slide? Yun pala yung gusto niyang gawin? Or punta siya sa cabinet, tas iba pala yung toy na gusto niyang laruin? Eh di nagka-idea ka, mas gusto niya pala tong gawin. And the next session nyo, yun yung gagawin yung way to target your goals. But meron din namang ibang kids na kahit na sinabi mong, okay, I'll follow your lead, or sige, gawin mo kung anong gusto mo, tapos wala naman silang gustong gawin, nakaupo lang sila. Just keep playing with the same toys in a very excited manner. You can try to prompt them by, look, okay, iabot mo sa kanila yung different parts, hanggang mamaya sila na rin yung kumakalikot ng parts. Ano pa ba? You can also engage a third party to look very excited. So, kunyari, kayo ni third party yung maglalaro. Okay, ayaw mo pang mag-play, kami na lang muna. Tapos, super, mag-enjoy kayo dun sa paglaro. Pag nakita usually ng bata na, uy, enjoy na enjoy sila. Bakit di ako kasali dun? Sasali na sila bigla. So, these are just some things that I try, and let me know if makatulong sa inyo yung ganong technique. Kailangan talaga medyo bolero tayo. Hello, Grace. Pwede mahingi ang location ng center nyo and contact number. Hello, guys. So, I don't own a center. I work at a center sa BGC, and it's called Kids in Motion Therapy Center. You can go to the website kidsinmotiontherapycenter.com, where you can see their telephone numbers. But, kaya guys, kaya never ako nagsasabi sa mga video ko na contact me or for therapy kasi wala na akong slot. I'm so sorry. So what I do offer is household coaching per hour, where some of you here, ng mga ibang kilala kong names dito, nag-household coaching na yung mga yan. And I'm so happy that you guys are still sticking around kahit na na-coach ko na kayo. I'm just so happy. I feel like I'm really part of your community. I'm part of your, the village raising your children. So thank you for that opportunity. But so, sa household coaching po is I will just conduct a very short screening where syempre kailangan medyo mag-gets ko from your, i-interview ko yung caregivers or your parents, tapos tatanungin ko ano bang skills ng bata, paano siya mag-communicate ngayon. Once I get a general idea of ano yung pamamaraan ng pag-communicate ng bata, then I can give you advice. So I call it household coaching because I give advice based on, and I start with, sometimes, kasi online to virtual. So sometimes I ask them to show me the room, saan ba naglalaro yung bata, and then I'll advise on baka kailangan nating i-change yung way kung nasaan yung toys nila, kung paano nakatago yung mga gamit, etc. So these household coaching sessions are per hour, but it can be attended by everyone in the household. Like, especially for the Filipino families, na ang laki-laki ng extended family na in one compound or one house, nandun din si lolo, tito, tita, may mga pinsan, may mga older pinsan, may mga younger pinsan, and all of you can attend it in that 1 hour. Well, it's per hour, depende how many hours you book. So that, because guys, children need consistency. So, kung ituturo ko lang sa parents, but you belong in an extended family unit, tas iba yung gagawin ni lolo at lola. So, kayo nga nagsiscreen rehab, pero pag nag-work from home kayo, tas si lolo yung nagbabantay, unlimited screen pa rin si baby, wala rin. So, it needs to be a family effort. Kaya I call it household coaching because everyone in the household needs to be on board. So, sorry about that. But I still gave the name of the center and you can get the contact numbers there. Kasi may iba naman po kaming speech therapist. Ang problema nga lang ay magbo-board exam pa lang yung ibang speech therapist namin. So, sa mga darating na buwan ay ako lang ang speech therapist doon. Oh my gosh. Okay. Good afternoon, Amy. Alright, let's get one from YouTube. And we are nearing 2 hours, guys, 3:47. So last few questions, okay? I have a child with autism, level 3, 4 years old na siya ngayon. Almost 1 year na din po siyang nag-OT. May chances po bang mag-improve yung anak ko? Kung ako lang po ang mag-train sa kanya sa bahay, yun po kasi ang plano. Sa mga nagtatanong kung may chance bang mag-improve yung bata, whether or not may kadugtong yan or not, yes, always may chance na mag-improve lahat ng tao. Kasi, isa sa mga base ng therapy is the concept called neuroplasticity. At ang ibig sabihin nito, na ang brain natin ay plastic, meaning, maaari siyang matuto ng new skills hanggang tayo'y mamatay. So, kung may hope na mag-i-improve ang mga skills ng isang tao, yes. But, mas mabilis na matuto ang mga tao ng new skills kapag tama po yung pag-target natin sa skills. And that's why we recommend going to a professional. Pero naiintindihan ko na hindi nga naman lahat ng tao ay may kakayahan na magbayad ng weekly therapy or kahit na assessment. Pero sana po talaga yung assessment ay napag-iipunan. Kasi sobrang importante na alamin natin bakit ganito yung bata, bakit siya ganito mag-communicate, bakit ganito siya mag-behave. And then when we at least have an assessment, we can get advice on saan kami magsisimulang tulungan yung bata. And then you can try to do things at home kung wala talagang kakayahang mag-therapy. But of course, because ang mga therapists ay trained to constantly adjust based on kung anong napapakita sa aming performance ng bata in their task, in their therapy work, in their sessions, syempre, mas malaki yung posibilidad na mas mabilis yung um, magiging direction ng progress natin. Pero, yung consistency ay sa inyo naman talaga manggagaling. Because kami, kasama namin usually yung mga bata once or twice a week, kayo kasama nyo araw-araw. So, I support you po na yes, try to do whatever you learn and practice dyan sa bahay with your child. And sana po masuportahan ko kayo. I don't know kung ano pang kailangan ninyo sa aking information, but sana po makatingin kayo sa YouTube channel ko kasi sobrang dami ko nang talaga dyang info on what you guys can do and practice na techniques at home. Alright. Next. Kapag po ba speech delayed ang bata, ibig sabihin may autism na agad? No! Agad-agad. Speech delay is only one characteristic of autism. Okay, tuloy. Yung anak ko po can name almost all things but he has a hard time combining words. Magpo 4 years old na po siya at di po siya makakombine ng words. He knows all the body parts, colors, ABC, numbers, animals, may functional words din naman like stop, go, drink, eat. Hindi ko po alam bakit di siya makapag-combine ng words. When he needs something, one word lang sasabihin niya like water, juice, milk. Hindi niya masabi, I want milk. And, okay, so, it's a very usually the transition to 2 words happens naturally to neurotypicals nga. But some children don't understand how to combine the words. So, alam kong you can improve the vocabulary of children with episode 4 commentary. But kapag meron ng single words yung bata, we can try the episode 30 called extension and expansion. So from the single word na nasasabi nila, tayo ngayon ang magdadagdag, mag-add ng word para ma-practice niyang marinig na, pwede ko palang idagdag yun. Pwede pala ako mag-add. Pero wag din natin biglain na agad-agang, I want milk and medyo mahaba po yung combinations na gusto natin. So let's start with kung meron siyang mga water, juice, milk, pwedeng pag nasabi niyang water, want water, mommy give water, drink water, cold water, yummy water. So, this is an example of how we can extend first, extend or expand depending on how you're using the technique, yung sinasabi na ng bata. But also, nabanggit mo kasi napakadami. At ikaw rin mismo ang nag-categorize na meron din naman siyang functional word. So, alam mong yung ABC, body parts, colors, hindi niya nagagamit functionally. And that means, I'm assuming, nakukuha niya yan sa kakanood ng videos. And so, kung may nakikita tayong ganito, tanggalin po muna natin yung videos. Mag-rehab po muna tayo sa screen because it's still possible that the child is trying so hard to learn all these functional words, pero dahil hating-hati yung capacity niya to remember words, dahil overstimulated pa rin siya ng other non-functional words for now, hindi naman niya nagagamit to communicate yung ABC and numbers, tanggalin po muna natin. And then tingnan natin kung mag-improve yung attention niya to how we use 2 words at a time. That's a good place to start. So, again, that's episode 30. I hope that this helps you. Alright. And for our last question. Hello, Teacher Kaye. Any thoughts about Miss Rachel's shows? Okay, I always get so many of these questions. So, once and for all, hindi naman once. I can repeat this for so long as may nagtatanong. But okay, so, I don't know if everyone here is familiar with Miss Rachel. Miss Rachel is a lady who used to be a childhood educator before. So, ngayon, gumagawa siya ng videos where parang kinakausap niya yung screen. And then, I'll give you pros and cons, because what I like about Miss Rachel shows is that it only uses animations or drawings um, when it wants to emphasize something or ipapakita yung pinag-uusapan niya. But the main host of the show is an actual person. And she talks semi-slowly. There are no fast animations. Yeah, so because when you watch her, it still kind of looks like a person-to-person interaction because tao siya at hindi siya cartoons. It's a little bit better than cartoons. Like, absolutely, if I feel like if the child is above 2 years old, fine, go ahead and watch Miss Rachel. But the cons are she still uses a lot of very bright colors, which are not necessarily bad in themselves, the bright colors, but it for children that are more susceptible, at ibig sabihin ko ng susceptible ay hindi kasi lahat ng bata na-addict sa screen. Meron akong nakatrabahong family na meron siyang twins. Yung isa niyang anak, same lang naman. Nung iniwan niya, manonood ng cartoons. Mamaya pagbalik niya, yung isa niyang anak, grabe parang hypnotized na, nakaglue dun sa hindi gumalaw the whole time na iniwan niya dun. Yung isa niyang anak, umalis na, naghanap na ng laruan. So dun pa lang makikita natin na not all children respond to screen stimulation the same. And that's probably because some children have better self-regulation. Self-regulation is when you can tell yourself to stop. I myself, and I know a lot of grown-ups, also have problems of when to stop. For example, kapag may pinapanood kayo on Netflix na series, and you reach the end of the episode, pero inisip niyo, shucks, kailangan kong makita kung anong nangyari dun sa next episode. So, papanoorin ko ulit yung next episode kahit na 5 a.m. na. Guilty. Never naman as bad as 5 a.m. Pero, nagpuyat na ako because I couldn't stop. My self-regulation still needs practice with some things. And so some babies have better self-regulation in terms of, I'm not really interested in this, so I'll walk away. I'll look for something more interesting. But some babies are just the type to get sucked into it and just absorb all of that without understanding the stuff. So, nasabi ko na, ang pros ko kay Miss Rachel is actual person talking, very few animations, and did I say slow? Was that number one? No, actual person, slower transitions, slower talking, and now my cons. My cons are there are still some very bright colors which could just attract very young babies. Like, gusto lang tingnan ng baby kahit na wala naman siyang alam kung anong pinagsasasabi ng ano. Why? Because it's, even if it looks like two-way communication, it is still not two-way communication. What do I mean? Two-way is when I say something and then you guys say something back so that I can respond to what you said. That is two-way communication, and that is how we learn how to communicate. That's it. It's always, even the most classic communication models will tell you na ganito, na there is sending of the message, there is reception of the message, and then a feedback loop. Paulit-ulit ganyan. But what's happening is it's still one way. Yes, Miss Rachel pauses. She will say, what's that? And then wait. But actually, what if mali yung sinabi ng bata? Tapos sabi mo, yeah, good job. Kasi yun yung nasa script mo eh. Because you're assuming na ginaya ng bata. Pero what if sinabi mo, can we say apple? Sabi ng bata, kamote. Yeah, that's right. O, ano ngayon? Paano mag-a-adjust? Hindi, mali yung feedback. And that's why it's all well and good. If you are going to watch any videos at all, Miss Rachel is your best option, one of your best options, until gumawa ako ng show na speech therapy. And then that'll be your best show. But in general pa rin, the rule is children or babies from 0 to 2 years old should not be exposed to any videos that are one-way interactions, because that's not how you learn. If you really want your children to develop, talk to them, play with them, be there for them. And I know that that's hard, mommies. I know ang dami-daming ganap, and daddies. I know, but as much as we can, also always remember that you don't need to entertain your children. It's more important to engage with them. And for the other times, like nung tinanong ng isang mommy, is what kind of toys can I leave them with? Create a safe space where they can manipulate and play with their toys. At kahit iwanan mo lang sila ng toys, they can entertain themselves. At pag napagsawaan nila ng toys, that's an opportunity for them to request by crying, "Ah!" So lalapitan nyo na sila, "Oh, anong problema? Ah! Ayaw na niyang paglaruan ng toys niya." Paltan nyo na yung toy. At least by crying and communicating with you, behavior, especially for those that are non-speaking yet, or really non-speaking, they can still communicate. Behavior is communication. But if you just leave them with a screen just because natatahimik sila pag ganon, that's not teaching them. That's not helping them. So, and I guess that's how I will end today. 4 o'clock na. Grabe, time flies, guys. So, I know na ang dami-dami pa nating, ang dami ko pang hindi mga nasasagot dito. But I hope to get back to you or sa susunod nating libreng konsulta. And have a good Sunday, everybody. Happy Father's Day sa lahat ng mga daddy na nanonood dito. Thank you for being here. And if you don't follow me yet, I'm Teacher Kaye. I'm a registered speech-language pathologist. And please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I-turn on yun na rin yung notifications para nalalaman nyo kapag nagla-live ako. And also follow me on my Instagram, my Facebook, and kung meron kayong TikTok, pero hindi talaga ako masyadong nagpo-post doon. But yes, importante, checklist, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and I think you will get all the information that I can share with you. Thank you guys for being part of this community. I appreciate you all so much. Hanggang sa muli, happy talking and mabuhay! Toodaloo! Bye-bye Facebook! Bye-bye YouTube!